Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification.
Elias Thorne had made a career out of finding discrepancies in financial ledgers. He knew that a single misplaced decimal point could hide $1 million of fraud. But, as he stood in the center of the Grand Sterling Hotel's ballroom, surrounded by the cloying scent of white lilies, and expensive perfume, he couldn't balance the equation in front of him. It was Sienna's wedding. The late afternoon sun was filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden haze over the 300 guests. Elias held a crystal flute of champagne that had gone warm 10 minutes ago. He wasn't drinking it. He was watching. Camilla, his wife of 6 years, stood near the head table. She was wearing a dress of deep emerald velvet, a garment they had purchased together in Milan. 3 years ago, it clung to her frame, elegant and commanding. But Elias noted a glitch in the data. Camilla hated weddings. She found them performative and tedious. Yet, today, her behavior was statistically improbable. Observation note. Subject is laughing at a decibel level inconsistent with the ambient noise. Her hand gestures are erratic. She has consumed 3 glasses of vintage rosé in 45 minutes. Eye contact with spouse, 0%. She looks incredible. Doesn't she? Elias blinked. The spell of his analysis breaking. He turned to see Marcus, his cousin, adjusting a tight collar. Marcus looked sweaty, despite the air conditioning. Yes, Elias said, his voice flat. She seems spirited. It's a party, Elias. Loosen up. You look like you're auditing the flower arrangements, Marcus joked. Though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Elias forced a smile. He felt a phantom pressure in his chest. A sensation he had begun to associate with Camilla over the last 6 months. She had called it his suffocating anxiety. She told him he was becoming paranoid, possessive, a man who couldn't let his wife breathe. Elias had believed her. He had started therapy to fix his controlling nature. But looking at her now, vibrating with a nervous energy that felt electric and dangerous, the paranoia felt like survival instinct. Record log 17:30. Event, the first dance. Anomaly, subject is missing. The lights dimmed for the couple's first dance. The crowd swayed. Elias turned to the spot where Camilla had been standing a moment ago, talking to the bride's brother. She was gone. He scanned the room. The emerald dress should have been easy to spot against the sea of black tuxedos and pastel gowns. He checked the bar. He checked the terrace, where the smokers gathered in huddled gray clouds. Nothing. Excuse me, Elias muttered to a passing waiter, placing his empty glass on a tray. He walked toward the lobby. His footsteps echoed on the marble. Why was his heart racing? You are controlling. Her voice echoed in his head. Let me have fun, Elias. Stop tracking me like an asset. He stopped. He took a deep breath. He checked his watch. 17 minutes. Since he last saw her. He decided to wait. He would sit in the lobby, check his emails, and be the calm, supportive husband she demanded. Record log 17:52. Status, panic. Escalating, 22 minutes. Elias couldn't sit anymore. The logic in his brain was screaming that something was wrong. He walked toward the restrooms. He asked a female guest coming out if anyone was inside. She shook her head. He moved toward the service corridors. The hotel was a labyrinth. He felt like a ghost, haunting the venue. Invisible and desperate. He checked the outdoor gardens again. Nothing. The feeling in his stomach turned cold and heavy, like swallowing lead. It wasn't just worry for her safety. It was a darker, more primitive dread. He returned to the ballroom, hoping, praying, that she was back at their table, complaining about the food. The table was empty. Record log 18:40. Event, reappearance. Elias was standing near the coat check when the side door, the one marked as an emergency exit leading to the valet lot, opened. Camilla stepped in. The transformation was subtle to anyone else. But to Elias, it was a car crash. The perfectly pinned chignon hairstyle was loose on the left side. A strand of chestnut hair falling over her cheek. Her lipstick, a sharp crimson shade applied with surgical precision 2 hours ago, was now a blurred stain, smudged at the corners. And the dress. The emerald velvet was creased horizontally, across the hips. Elias didn't move. He waited for her to see him. When she finally looked up and locked eyes with him, she didn't flinch. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed. He walked over, his legs feeling heavy. "Where were you?" Elias asked. He tried to keep his voice neutral, devoid of the accusatory tone she hated. Camilla sighed, rolling her eyes. A gesture of supreme exhaustion. "Oh, God. Here we go." I stepped out for air, Elias. The room was stifling. "Do you have to log my movements every second?" "You were gone for an hour," Elias stated. "Your hair. What is undone?" She touched her hair. A flicker of something. Fear. Crossing her face before it hardened into anger. "It's windy outside. You're being ridiculous. You're ruining Sienna's night with your insecurity." Again. She brushed past him, her shoulder hitting his chest hard. "I'm going to the bar." "Don't. Follow me." Elias stood frozen. The gaslighting was immediate. A reflex she had perfected. For a moment, he wavered. Was it windy? Was he ruining the night? Maybe he was the problem. The narrative she had spun for months was that he was the villain of their marriage. The bore, who couldn't handle her free spirit. Then, he felt a hand on his arm. It was Marcus. Elias looked at his cousin. Marcus's face was pale, drained of blood. He held his phone in his hand. His grip so tight. His knuckles were white. "Elias," Marcus whispered. His voice was trembling. I didn't know what to do. I debated deleting it. But, you need to see this. Record log. 18:48. Evidence. Digital image. Timestamp. 18:15. Conclusion, catastrophic. Failure. Elias took the phone. The screen was bright in the dim hallway. The photo was grainy, taken in the low yellow sodium light of the parking lot. But the subjects were undeniable. Camilla was pressed against the side of a black SUV. Her legs were tangled with the legs of a man. Elias didn't know. A man with long hair, wearing a vest. His hands were gripping the emerald velvet of her waist, pulling her hips into him. Camilla's arms were wrapped around the man's neck. Her head tilted back. Her mouth locked onto his. It wasn't a quick peck. It was a devouring. It was hungry. It was the kiss of a woman who had forgotten she had a husband inside. The world stopped. The sound of the wedding band, playing a cover of a love song, faded into a high-pitched tinnitus whine. Elias looked at the photo. Then, he looked at the hallway where Camilla had just walked, demanding he stop suffocating her. The unreliable narrator in his head. The voice that told him he was crazy, jealous, and controlling, died instantly. It was silenced by the cold, hard, pixelated truth. He handed the phone back to Marcus. His hand was steady now. The shaking had stopped. "Send that to me," Elias said. His voice sounded like it was coming from a machine. "Elias. Man. I'm so sorry. Send it. Now." Elias turned and looked back at the ballroom. He saw Camilla at the bar, laughing with the bartender, tossing her hair back. She looked free. She looked happy. Elias felt the anger rising. Not like a fire, but like a flood of ice water. He didn't make a scene. He didn't scream. He simply adjusted his cufflinks, buttoned his jacket, and decided that the man who had walked into this hotel, the man who doubted himself, was not walking out. The drive home had been a masterclass in tension. Camilla had passed out in the passenger seat 5 minutes into the ride, muttering about the champagne being too sweet. Elias had driven in silence, his eyes fixed on the road. The image from Marcus's phone burned into his retinas. Now, it was 4 a.m. The house was silent. Camilla was asleep in the master bedroom, snoring softly, the smell of stale alcohol, and another man's cologne, seeping from her pores. Elias sat in his study. The glow of his dual monitors illuminated his face. He was in his element now. This was what he did. He followed trails. He found the truth, buried in mountains of data. He had Camilla's laptop. She never changed her passwords. Mocking Elias's obsession with cybersecurity. The password was her birthday. Lazy, he thought. Arrogant. Action log. Accessing email client. Search query, Dominic. Results. 42. Threads. He didn't know the man's name was Dominic until he checked her deleted texts via the cloud sync. But the name appeared everywhere in her inbox. Elias opened the first thread. It dated back 3 months. Subject, the gallery opening. From, Dominic. To, Camilla. You looked bored tonight, see. I could see you dying inside standing next to the suit. The suit. That was him. Elias felt a muscle twitch in his jaw. He kept reading. The emails were a dossier of betrayal. They weren't just arranging meetups, they were emotional dissections of Elias. Camilla wrote, he's just so gray, Dominic. He speaks in numbers. He asks me where I've been like he's conducting an audit. I feel like I'm living in a prison cell made of spreadsheets. He doesn't touch me like you do. He asks permission. I hate that. Elias stopped breathing for a moment. He asked permission. Because he respected her. He was gentle. Because she had once told him she hated aggression. Now, his respect was being weaponized as weakness. He scrolled further. Camilla wrote, I told him I'm going to therapy for our communication issues. It buys me time. He thinks he's the problem. It's pathetic, really. He's so desperate to please me. I can get away with anything. Pathetic. The word hung in the air. Elias opened a new folder on his secure drive. He named it simply. Case_CT. Termination. He began to screenshot everything. Every sexual innuendo. Every planned rendezvous. Every insult. He found receipts for hotels charged to her business expense card. He found a second Instagram account she used solely to interact with this Dominic character. Dominic. A quick background check revealed. Was a 29-year-old percussionist for a local band. Currently working part-time at a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor. He had a history of petty debt. And 2 evictions. This was what she was risking everything for. A cliché. Record log. 5:45. Status, evidence collection complete. Physical condition, nausea. Tremors in hands. Subsided. Cold. Fury. Elias closed the laptop. He walked to the window and looked out at the manicured lawn he paid for. The luxury SUV in the driveway he paid for. The life he had built for them. For years. He had believed her narrative. He believed he was emotionally stunted. That he needed to change. That he was lucky. A woman as vibrant as Camilla stayed with a boring accountant. He realized now. That boring was just a synonym for stable. And Camilla didn't want stability. She wanted chaos. But she wanted Elias to fund it. He went to the kitchen and made a pot of black coffee. He didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen island. Watching the sun come up. Waiting. He wasn't the confused husband anymore. He was the auditor. And he had found fraud. On a massive scale. Elias walked into the bedroom. The curtains were drawn. The room smelling of sleep and regret. He walked over to the windows and ripped the curtains open. The harsh morning light flooded the room. Camilla groaned. Pulling the duvet over her head. Elias. What the hell? She muffled. My head is splitting. Close the damn blinds. Wake up, Camilla, Elias said. His voice was not loud. But it carried a resonance that cut through the room. She sat up. Squinting. Her face puffy. What is your problem? Are you still sulking about the wedding? God. You are exhausting. Elias didn't answer. He pulled the chair from her vanity table and placed it at the foot of the bed. He sat down. Crossing his legs. He placed her open laptop on his lap. We need to review the logs, he said calmly. Camilla rubbed her eyes. Logs? What are you talking about? Are you having a breakdown? I know. About Dominic. The silence that followed was absolute. It sucked the oxygen out of the room. Camilla froze. Her hand halfway to her hair. The color drained from her face so fast, it looked like a magic trick. Who? She stammered. The arrogance was gone. Replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. Dominic. The bartender. The drummer. The man you kissed in the parking lot at Sienna's wedding. While I was searching for you. Camilla's eyes darted around the room. Looking for an exit. Looking for a lie. You're imagining things. You're crazy, Elias. This is your paranoia again. Who told you this? I have a photograph, Elias said, tapping the trackpad of the laptop. He turned the screen around. On the screen was the email thread where she called Elias pathetic. And I have your correspondence, he added. Camilla stared at the screen. She didn't look at the email. She looked at the laptop itself. You went through my computer? You invaded my privacy? That is illegal, Elias. That is abuse. She was trying to pivot. Attack the method to ignore the crime. It was a classic PR move. Privacy is a privilege of the faithful, Elias said coldly. And don't talk to me about abuse. I read what you wrote. You told him I was controlling to justify your affair. You gaslit me into therapy, Camilla. You made me believe I was broken, so you could feel better about sleeping with a man who can't even pay his own rent. It's not like that. Camilla shouted. Scrambling out of bed. She stood there in her silk pajamas, trembling. You don't understand. I was lonely. You're always working. You're always so cold. Dominic. He made me feel alive. It was just physical. It didn't mean anything. Just physical. Elias swiped the screen. Here. October 2nd. You told him you loved his artistic soul. And that you wished I would disappear so you could have the house to yourselves. Camilla went silent. You don't just want an affair, Camilla. You want my life. But without me in it. I was drunk when I wrote that. Elias, please. We can fix this. I'll stop seeing him. I swear. It was a mistake. I love you. She took a step toward him, tears welling up in her eyes. Elias watched the tears. He analyzed them. Subject is utilizing distress to elicit sympathy. He stood up, picking up the laptop. No, Camilla. You don't love me. You love the lifestyle I provide. And unfortunately for you, that lifestyle is no longer available. What are you doing? She whispered. I called my lawyer at 6 a.m. I'm moving into the guest room. You have until the end of the week to find alternative living arrangements. And since we signed a prenuptial agreement that specifically covers infidelity with a morality clause, thank you for that suggestion, by the way. You will be leaving with exactly what you came in with. You can't do this, she hissed. Her face contorted into something ugly. I'll tell everyone. I'll tell them you beat me. I'll ruin you. Elias looked at her with genuine pity. Camilla. I have 6 months of emails where you admit to lying about me being abusive to garnish sympathy from your lover. If you try to slander me, I will sue you for defamation. And I will win. I have the receipts. He walked to the door. Elias, she screamed. The sound raw and desperate. He didn't turn back. The audit is closed, Camilla. Camilla had moved fast. In the week since the confrontation, she had launched a preemptive strike. She had gone to her parents' estate, weeping, claiming Elias had thrown her out in a fit of jealous rage. That he was unstable. That he had hacked her devices and fabricated evidence. Her parents, old money and fiercely protective, had summoned Elias. He arrived precisely on time. He wore a charcoal suit. He carried a leather portfolio. When he entered the drawing room, the atmosphere was hostile. Robert Vance stood by the fireplace, holding a scotch. Evelyn sat on the sofa, clutching Camilla's hand. Camilla looked fragile, dressed in white, playing the role of the victimized saint to perfection. Elias, Robert boomed. You have some explaining to do. Treating my daughter like a criminal? Locking her out of accounts? I expected better from you, Evelyn added, looking at him with disdain. We welcomed you into this family. And I appreciated that, Elias said calmly. He didn't sit down. He walked to the coffee table. However, before we discuss my behavior, I believe it is essential that you have the full context. We know the context. Camilla shouted. Her voice shrill. You're obsessed. You're trying to control me. Robert, Elias said, ignoring his wife. You are a businessman, you understand the importance of data integrity. He opened the portfolio. He didn't spread the papers out chaotically, he laid them down in 3 neat stacks. Exhibit A, the photo from the wedding. Exhibit B, a printed selection of the most damning emails, highlighted in yellow. Exhibit C, the credit card statements showing the hotel rooms booked under her maiden name. What is this? Robert asked, looking down. That is your daughter. At Sienna's wedding. Engaging with a man named Dominic, Elias said. Robert picked up the photo. His face turned a shade of crimson that matched the rug. He looked at Camilla. She shrank back into the sofa. And this, Elias pointed to the second stack, is where she explains to her lover how she manipulates you. Specifically, Evelyn. Evelyn reached for a paper. Elias watched her eyes scan the text. Email from Camilla, I'll just cry to mom. She believes anything I say, she thinks Elias is too cold anyway. I can get money from her to cover the trip to Cabo. Evelyn gasped. The paper fluttered from her hand. She looked at her daughter with a mixture of horror and betrayal. Camilla? You wrote this? Mom. He edited those. It's fake. Camilla sobbed. The digital signatures are authenticated, Elias said smoothly. I can have a forensic IT specialist verify them for you if you wish. But we all know the truth here. The room fell silent. The power dynamic had shifted violently. Camilla's shield, her family's unconditional belief, had been shattered by the weight of her own words. Robert Vance finished his scotch in one gulp. He looked at Elias. Then at his daughter. He looked tired. Camilla. Go to your room. Daddy. Go to your room. Robert roared. Camilla fled. Sobbing loudly. Robert turned to Elias. I assume you are filing for divorce. It was filed on Monday, Elias said. My lawyer will be in touch regarding the settlement. I am not asking for anything of yours, Robert. I just want a clean break. I want my name off her debts. And I want her out of my life. Understood, Robert said. He didn't offer a hand. He just nodded. A gesture of defeated respect. Elias gathered his portfolio. He left the house. As he stepped out into the cool autumn air, he checked his internal log. The divorce had been finalized in 4 months. The prenup held. The evidence was overwhelming. Camilla received a small lump sum. Enough to rent a decent apartment for a year, but not enough to sustain the life she felt entitled to. Elias had sold the house on Oak Street. It held too many ghosts of his own self-doubt. He moved into a penthouse in the financial district. It was modern, sparse, and clean. Minimalist. Subject status, Elias. Elias was thriving. It wasn't an explosion of joy, but a steady, climbing line on a graph. He had thrown himself into his work. Not as an escape, but as a passion. He was promoted to senior partner. He had started seeing someone. Valerie. She was a pediatric surgeon. She was busy, grounded, and fiercely intelligent. When Elias asked her where she had been, she told him because she wanted to share her day. Not because she was hiding a crime. There was no gaslighting. There was just truth. One evening, sitting on his balcony overlooking the city lights, Elias realized he hadn't checked his internal log for anxiety in weeks. The auditor in his brain was finally off duty. Subject status, Camilla. Information reached Elias through the grapevine. Mostly from Marcus, who couldn't help but gossip. The trajectory of Camilla's life had been a downward slope. Dominic, the artistic soul, had lasted exactly 3 weeks after the money stopped flowing. Once Camilla was no longer the bored, rich wife paying for hotels and drinks, but a divorced woman demanding attention and needing rent money. The passion evaporated. He broke up with her via text message. Camilla lost her job at the gallery. The art world was small, and Robert Vance had quietly pulled his funding and influence from the gallery board after the embarrassment. Without her father's protection, and with her reputation tarnished by the public nature of the breakup, she was a liability. She was currently working as a receptionist at a mid-tier PR firm, living in a studio apartment in a less desirable part of town. Elias didn't feel happy about this. He didn't feel sad. He felt the indifference of looking at a company that had gone bankrupt due to poor management. It was just a fact. Elias was buying olive oil. He was cooking dinner for Valerie tonight. Seabass and risotto. He was comparing two brands of extra virgin oil, when he felt a presence. He turned. Standing by the pasta sauce display was Camilla. It had been 8 months. But she looked 5 years older. The gloss was gone. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dull and unwashed. She wore a gray sweater that looked slightly too large. And yoga pants. She held a basket containing a frozen pizza, and a bottle of cheap wine. She froze when she saw him. Elias looked sharp. He was wearing a tailored navy coat. His hair freshly cut. He looked like success. Elias, she breathed. Her voice was small. Camilla, he nodded. His face impassive. She shuffled her feet. I haven't seen you in a while. You look good. I am good, he said. I heard you made senior partner. Congratulations. Thank you. The silence stretched. It was awkward for her. But for Elias, it was just a pause. Elias, she started. Her eyes welling up, that familiar glisten. I think about you a lot. I think about how I messed up. I was stupid. Dominic was a mistake. I didn't realize how good I had it. Until it was gone. She took a step closer. Searching his eyes for a spark. Anger? Lust? Hatred? Anything that showed he still cared. Do you think, maybe one day, we could get coffee? Just to talk? I miss my best friend. Elias looked at her. He remembered the wedding. He remembered the boring comments. He remembered the feeling of suffocating in his own home. He analyzed the request. Risk assessment, high. Potential return on investment, 0. No, Camilla, Elias said gently. Her face fell. You hate me. I don't hate you, Elias said. And he realized it was the absolute truth. Hate implies emotional investment. I just don't know you. The woman I married didn't exist. She was a character you played. And the woman standing in front of me. He looked at her basket. The frozen pizza. The cheap wine. Is a stranger. He placed the expensive olive oil in his cart. Take care of yourself, Camilla. Elias turned his cart and walked away toward the checkout. He didn't look back. He didn't check to see if she was crying. He didn't log the time. He walked out of the automatic doors into the cool night air. He checked his watch. 19:25. He had to hurry. Valerie would be there at 8. And he didn't want to overcook the fish. The city lights blurred as he drove away, leaving the past in the rearview mirror. Shrinking. Until it disappeared completely. The ledger was finally balanced. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.